There's someone in your life right now who you're convinced doesn't like you. Maybe it's a coworker or a friend who takes too long to reply. Someone who looked at you a little differently yesterday. You've built a whole case against them. You've run the evidence 100 times in your head. You know what they're thinking. You know what they meant. Except you don't. You never did. What if I told you the enemy you're defending yourself against doesn't actually exist? And the thing that built them was your own mind. Your brain didn't evolve to make you happy. It evolved to keep you alive. And for most of human history, staying alive meant one thing: never, ever being caught off guard by something dangerous. So your brain built a system, a surveillance network that runs every second of every day, even while you sleep. Its entire job is to scan the world for threats, real or imagined, and flag them before they become a problem. Neuroscientists call it the threat detection system, centered around a small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain, the amygdala. It doesn't think, it reacts. In 80 milliseconds, faster than you can consciously perceive anything, it's already decided whether you're safe. 80 milliseconds. That's not a thought, that's a reflex. And here's the terrifying part. This system was designed for a world of lions and rival tribes and physical danger lurking behind every tree. But you don't live in that world anymore. You live in an apartment. You work at a desk. And your amygdala is still scanning for lions, except now the lions are your co-workers, your followers, your friends. The machinery is ancient. The threats are modern. And nobody told your brain the difference. Here's how it actually works. Your brain is a prediction machine. Every single moment of your life, it is not perceiving reality. It is guessing reality based on past experience, then checking if it's right, which means you are never fully reacting to what's happening. You are reacting to what you expect to happen. You walk into a room and someone doesn't smile at you. Your brain doesn't register that as a neutral event. It searches its archives. Every time someone ignored you, every time you are excluded, every time someone's silence meant danger. And then it builds a story. It doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait for evidence. It writes the ending before the scene is even over. Psychologists call this negativity bias. Your brain weighs negative signals 5 times more heavily than positive ones. One ambiguous look from a stranger outweighs 20 genuine smiles. This isn't a flaw. For our ancestors, 1 missed threat could mean death. 5 missed compliments just meant a bad afternoon. So the math was always skewed toward fear. And now we carry that math into every text message, every performance review, every glance across a crowded room. Think about the last time someone left you unread. You didn't just notice it, you processed it. You ran through every possible explanation. And somehow, you landed on the worst one. They're angry, they don't care. You said something wrong. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe their phone died. But your brain didn't file it under unknown. It filed it under threat. And here's the really disturbing part. Once your brain decides someone is a threat, it starts finding evidence everywhere. This is called confirmation bias. And it's not a quirk of the irrational mind. It's how every mind works. Once the narrative is written, your brain becomes a prosecutor, not an investigator. It isn't looking for truth. It's looking for confirmation. The way they worded that email, The tone they used in that meeting, the fact that they didn't include you in that plan. Each one feels like proof. Each one tightens the case. And the enemy gets more real with every passing hour, even though they were never real to begin with. But what if the most dangerous enemy your brain creates isn't someone else at all? Because here is where it gets darker. The same threat detection system that invents enemies in other people also turns inward. And when it does, it creates the cruelest enemy of all. Yourself. That voice in your head that tells you you're not enough. That replays your mistakes at 3 a.m. That takes one critical comment and builds an entire identity crisis around it. That isn't a personality trait. That's an ancient survival system misfiring in a world it was never designed for. Research shows we spend nearly 47% of our waking hours not thinking about what's in front of us, but ruminating. Running simulations of problems that already happened or haven't happened yet. Building threat models for futures that will never arrive. Nearly half your life spent defending yourself against things that don't exist. And here's the modern tragedy of all of this. We live in an age of unprecedented connection. More people than ever in human history are technically reachable at any moment. And yet loneliness has become an epidemic. Social anxiety is at its highest recorded levels. Trust is at its lowest. Because the threat detection system wasn't built for scale. It was built to track 150 people. Your tribe, the ones you could smell, touch, read. Every notification is a potential threat. Every comment section is a battlefield. Every profile is a person your amygdala is quietly evaluating for danger. We are walking through the modern world in a state of low-grade paranoia, not because something is wrong with us, because something is working exactly as designed. Think about all the relationships that slowly decayed because of a story your brain wrote without permission. The friend you slowly pulled away from because they seemed distant 1 month. The apology that never came, not because the other person didn't care, but because they never even knew you were hurt. The opportunities you never chased because some part of your brain decided rejection was too dangerous to risk. The version of yourself you buried because being seen felt like standing in an open field during a thunderstorm. All of that because of a system that was never updated. Your brain is still running the software of a creature that needed to survive the savannah. And you are trying to live a full, connected, meaningful human life with that operating system running in the background. And the worst part isn't that you didn't know. The worst part is that even after hearing this, even after naming it, the system will still run tomorrow. But it does give you something, a pause, a single precious moment between the story being written and the story being believed. The question isn't how to silence the threat detection system. You can't. It's the foundation you are built on. The question is, can you learn to recognize the moment your brain starts building an enemy out of ambiguity? Can you sit with the not knowing long enough to ask whether the story is real? Most people can't do it. Not consistently, not in the heat of the emotion. When the amygdala has already fired and the narrative already has momentum. But the ones who can, even sometimes, they live in a fundamentally different world. Not a safer world, not a world with fewer real threats, just a world with fewer imaginary ones. And that turns out to be the difference between a life lived in quiet siege mode and something that actually resembles peace. There's one last thing worth sitting with. If your brain fabricates enemies from ambiguity, builds threats from neutral signals, writes stories without evidence, then at some point you have to ask the uncomfortable question. How many real connections did you lose to a fake war? How many people walked away from you not because they wanted to, but because your defensive behavior, your distance, your preemptive coldness confirmed for them the very story your distance was supposed to protect you from? How many enemies did your brain invent and then help create? The philosopher Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He wrote that 2,000 years ago, before smartphones, before social media, before the endless scroll of other people's lives triggering our comparison circuits and our exclusion detectors 2,000 years ago. And he already understood the problem, which means this isn't a new condition. It's a human one. The brain has always built enemies. The world has always been the wrong environment for the brain we inherited. The only question that's ever been worth asking is the one nobody wants to answer. If the enemy was never real, then what have you been protecting yourself from all this time?